Hi, this is Scott Fresener, developer of T-Seps and FastFilms. I'd like to talk to you about what routine to run on certain designs. It does get confusing when you have lots of different routines and different types of artwork. You have artwork that's photorealistic and artwork that's more cartoony, and occasionally it gets confusing as to what you should run. Many times it depends on how many colors you can print. As an example, and by the way, some of these are licensed properties that were just samples that I worked on with some of my customers, but in some cases, it depends on how many colors you can print. If you can print 8 to 10 colors, then designs like this you probably would run as simulated process color, and you would probably pull the optional fleshes and browns and maybe do a couple of fleshes to get this to look correct. By the way, this is actually a sample of the original artwork, and I think the artwork is a little dull and flat, and I would always take some artistic license. And even though this is a licensed property, I would probably take a little tone curve to it and do like what I talked earlier in fixing bad art, do a little S curve and kind of bring things out. So for a design like this, if all you can print is 4 to 6 colors, you would probably run this as real process color because you really want to come close to the realism. It'll be a little flatter on the shirt and not as bright as simulated or indexing, but you want to really match the original. And I would probably run this as CMYK first to see how the program does. Now for a design like this, it's pretty simple. I would run this as simulated process color because it's looking for light blue, darker blue, it's looking for a red, looking for an orange. There's actually some orange in some of this, and I would probably run this as the 9 color actually because the 9 color is looking for gray. We have a lot of gray right here, and even though we know we can get gray by putting halftone dots on a black shirt, we're going to get some white halftone dots. We're going to get some closing in, and I probably want to print gray. I would probably run this as a 9 color plus 2 whites, and I could get this down to 5 or 6 colors easily. The highlight, the gray, the underbase, the red, the blue, and maybe an orange. And I might even run the optional flesh and brown routine to find the orange. So this would be pretty simple. Plan B would be run this as indexing. With indexing, I would probably have to pick at least 2 blues, at least 2 reds, the gray, and I could probably do this as 6 colors indexed. For a design like this, again, unless you can print a lot of colors, unless you can print, if it's going to go on a black shirt especially, unless you can print, let's say, 8 or 10 colors, I would probably run this as CMYK, real process color. Again, to do it as simulated process, you'd have to really pull 2 or 3 fleshes, probably pull the flesh tone, which has the flesh and optional oranges and browns, because you're going to need the brown for the hair and the brown for some of the shadow areas here. You're going to need a light flesh, a medium flesh, maybe an orange for some of the shadow areas. So this one would be a tough one. Now, plan B would be if you can't print it in lots of colors, is do it as real CMYK. Do it as real CMYK, and on a 4 or 6 color press, on a 4 color press, it would work. She may be a little flat, so you may want to again come and boost her a little bit. You might go to image, adjustments, curves, and just like I did with the Troy one, you might give her a little more contrast because it's going to definitely get a little bit duller when you're printed on a light shirt as just real CMYK. Design like this would be kind of a no-brainer. I would run it as simulated process color. Again, it's looking for light blues, dark blues. It's looking for reds. It'll make an orange, looking for yellows. And you could also run this as index, but a job like this is fairly simple. When you have a limited color palette, then simulated process works well. But again, your choices are run the 5 color or the 9 color, depending on how many colors are and what colors are in here. But lots of light blues, lots of darker blues. Now, again, for a design like this, if you have to nail this thing exactly, this is the Hush Puppy mascot. If you have to nail him exactly, you'd probably run it as CMYK. Again, keeping in mind that it's going to dull down a little bit. But the truth is, I would probably run this as simulated process color, and I'd run the 9 color plus 2 whites because that gives me a brown. Then I would run the optional flesh and brown because some of this in his coat is kind of a creamy flesh color, actually, lighter Caucasian flesh. And if I ran, I might end up with 13 or 14 channels, but I could get him down to maybe 1 or 2 browns, and maybe the optional orange would help this, and I could really make this thing work in 4 or 5, maybe 6 colors. This design is interesting because you probably have to nail the red in the Coors. That would probably be a corporate logo color for Coors, so you probably have to nail that. And so you could probably run this best as index because you're going to pick the red, pick the light blue, pick the dark blue, pick the yellow, pick the black, maybe pick the gray, and really nail these colors. Plan B would be run this as simulated process color because, again, the 5 color plus 2 whites looks for reds, 2 blues, the black. It won't make the gray. Maybe run it as 9 color because you might want the gray in the tires. So this one, again, you want to be bold and just play around and just run different routines. This, again, being a really non-photorealistic, could be run as simulated R indexed. And I might run this as the 9 color plus 2 whites because the 9 color is going to give me, maybe make a little bit better orange. I might even run the optional flesh and orange and browns to give me the orange. But I could get this down to 5 or 6 colors, a light blue, a darker blue, the red, the orange. The green in here I'll probably pick up by making the green with the blue and the yellow. The 5 color routine does that. And so I could also index this. One of our samples in these videos shows this design indexed, where I pick the red, pick a dark blue, pick a light blue, pick a yellow, pick a black, and it makes the orange with the yellow and the red. And so this could be run as indexed R simulated process color. You know, a good example of using the program for simple designs is this Ratfink image from our friends down at Ratfink. And this is the original file right here. That's the RGB with everything turned off, so I actually ran the separations on, but that's the original file. This is the actual separated version right here. And you would think, well, this design being more vector-based, more cartoony, wouldn't lend itself to T-Seps, but the truth is you run the 9 color routine, which we know is looking for reds, yellows, greens, and of course the underbase and highlight. And the only difference here is that when it ran the green separation, it wasn't very intense, so I took a tone curve to the green and popped the green, and I changed the actual color. T-Seps is looking for a little darker green, more of a green like that. So when I got done running it, I went ahead and pulled up the green channel, double-clicked on the channel, click on the color, and force the color to be what's the color I need. I can force it to be the color in the design. We can see right here that it's changing it on screen. And I can find that color, and I can then match that and figure out the Pantone color. And I have a 1, 2, 3, 4 color design on a black shirt from a design that really would almost lend itself to be a vector-based design. Now, the same thing for a piece of art like this, which is not a great piece of art, but it's the kind of stuff that we get in. And again, it lends itself. You might think, well, this would typically be a Corel piece of art, but you get artwork like this in non-vector format. You get it as just a scan off an inkjet output, and so it's already pixelated, and it's not very high quality, and it's pretty rough. And you're thinking, well, I should probably rescan this, retrace it, take it into Corel Draw. Yes, you could do that, but if you run it in T-Seps, you again would run the 9 color plus 2 whites, run the optional flesh and brown, which is looking for oranges, and so you've got your browns, you've got your orange, you could even pick up a flesh, you've got the green, and you've got the colors you're looking for, and you dump the rest of them. So designs like this even work well with T-Seps. Even a design like this that I used in a previous example in the index routine, this would lend itself to simulated process color, 9 color plus 2 whites, because again it's looking for the blues, and I would run the optional flesh and browns. That would give me my flesh tone, and stuff like this would work excellent running the 9 color plus 2 whites. Many times I'll tell customers to run the 9 color, and of course the first response is, I can't print that many colors. And the point is not that at all. The point is to run the routine that gives you the most selections, and then you keep the channels you want, and you throw the rest of them away. That is how I would determine what routine to run using T-Seps.